I want to welcome now Isabel Garcia, of course, who you just saw in the video, but now she's here in real life. Isabel, you are the co-founder of the, let me see if I can say this well, Coalición de Derechos Humanos.
Very good.
Coalition of Human Rights. I have to admit, I'm embarrassed to admit this actually, that as a journalist, as someone who covers these issues, who I believe is supposed to know about things like this, I'm supposed to inform the public, I was really uneducated about the Streamline court and the way that this system works. So talk to us a little bit more about how this actually works. How long has the court been around?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm really happy to be here to tell all of you that this exists. Don't feel bad that you don't know. Most people in Tucson, Arizona, where I live, where the court is, doesn't know. They have no clue. As I said in the video, I go make many presentations, ask the people if they recognize the court. They do, and people don't know. That out of that building, we are paying, all of us are paying $33 million per month, a minimum, times 12, a year. And we claim we have no money, and people don't know. So the number one thing you need to know is that immigrants aren't just deported. It's not just the civil administrative proceeding. You need to understand immigrants have no rights to a lawyer when they're faced with civil administrative proceedings. So of course, if you don't have a lawyer, you really don't have rights in those legal processes. Well, in this case, you do have a lawyer. A right to a lawyer, a right to the constitutional rights that are afforded under the Constitution if you're charged with a criminal offense. And what we do is now we prosecute them criminally. Everybody has a case, United States of America versus Isabel Garcia. And most of them now are individuals that have a prior deportation. They've been removed before. And because they're found in the United States, they face a felony. So it's not just the illegal entry, but the illegal re-entry. It's the fastest growing felony. You can receive a sentence of 2 to 20 years. And Operation Streamline grew out of the increased funneling of immigrants, purposeful funneling of immigrants through the state of Arizona, to create a state of hate, to become a laboratory for anti-human measures. They're anti-human measures applied to immigrants. Now we've seen that historically. After slavery, of course, we saw similar kind of laws that came in. Anyway, we funneled everybody through the state of Arizona. 1,000 to 2,000 people were crossing in the height. It was supposed to be part of the consequence delivery systems that we have as part of the Border Patrol strategic plan. And with this consequence delivery system, for the heinous crime of migrating, you are convicted of either a misdemeanor or a felony. So when we say now, the White House says, well, we're deporting the right people. We're deporting all the criminals. Well, we should not engage in the good criminal, the good immigrant and the bad immigrant. That's what they want us to do, and we should stop from doing that. We cannot fall into horrible messaging either about the criminal justice system, which is a whole other issue.
Well, and I wonder too, does the reason why someone has migrated come into play at all? If this is someone who is seeking refuge because they are fleeing conflict in their home country.
Well,
we're the United States, right? We're supposed to offer some type of protection for people like this. At least that's what we like to claim.
Absolutely. I think this is all a huge violation of international and constitutional rights. But what happens here is that many times the lawyers, most of the times the lawyers represent 5 to 8 people in that courtroom. They're handed a plea agreement with a set number of days you're going to serve in prison. And the Syracuse University determined that in these cases, 98% of the people get prison or jail versus a 45 or 48% in the general system. Imagine that. And so the lawyers are not well versed in immigration law. And when they're presented with, you have a felony, that's easy to prove. All they have to prove is that I was deported in 2007 through Nogales, and I'm found here today in Phoenix, Arizona. So do you wonder why the prosecutors have chosen this to be their favorite crime, the easiest crime to prove? So many times the lawyers don't explore those reasons. But even if you're an economic refugee from conditions that we have helped create, when we talk about 11 million undocumented people here, it's important to know that they're here because we invited them or we have caused their migration. And so we have to accept responsibility and not just assume that everybody's coming here because we all want a better life, which is true. Fundamentally, it's true. We want a better life, but we must accept responsibility for our wrongdoing in those practices, whether it's our war on drugs, whether it's NAFTA. We are causing migration into the United States. And then we want to criminalize them, we demonize them. So this is but one way. You either face death in the desert, or you face being deported, separated from your family. You face Streamline. If you've been deported before and they deport you and you come back, you face a federal felony. And so what do people do? Well, there are some avenues, right? We do individual. Rosa Robles Loreto has been in sanctuary in Tucson for almost a year. And she's a courageous woman who is not facing Streamline because she chose not to obey the order of deportation and was given sanctuary at Southside Presbyterian Church in Tucson, Arizona.
I want to bring up a figure that you mentioned in the video too, where you said that 60% of the criminal prosecutions by the government last year were immigration violations.
Past 2 years.
Past 2 years.
Overcoming the drug
is mind-blowing. That is a huge figure. And you would think that that means this would be one of the biggest issues that our country is facing. And yet comprehensive immigration reform is something that keeps just being passed on to the next one.
Well, there's been no real comprehensive reform truly proposed. Most of it has been comprehensive militarization. Make no mistake about it. That we have some legalization provisions, yes. If it passes, will we try to push as many people as possible? Yes. However, it's important to know it's comprehensive militarization of our borders, and border militarization does not stay at the border.
All right, Isabel, thank you so much.
From the checkpoints to the lack of a criminal process, that is being normalized and adopted all across the country. Everything we do to immigrants
Well,
is
let me ask you one
normalized
more
and
thing,
applied.
too, because you mentioned in the video that this doesn't just stay with the immigrant community, right?
That's correct.
This is affecting everyone's rights. How do you see that playing out?
Well, I think it's a dangerous step. I've been a criminal defense attorney for over 30 years. I just retired as the Pima County legal defender. And I'm telling you, with our criminal justice system, as bad as it is, we must maintain those protections, particularly the probable cause determination process, the investigation process, interviewing police officers, and when you begin to simply waive all of those and accept the best plea possible, we're down a slippery slope, and it's going to impact and has begun to impact all of us. We already have these early case disposition courts blossoming all over. And so it's really very dangerous. The checkpoints impact all of us, not just migrants. The drones, everything that's been perfected along this border and is being perfected at the University of Arizona with a multi-million-dollar grant, along with other universities that are perfecting these kind of technologies against human beings. And we may say these are anti-immigrant policies, but the bottom line is they are anti-human policies. At this point, applied to migrants.
Well, everything might one day apply to you, right? No one ever wants to imagine that day. Isabel, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here.